Welcome to Salaam Nerds Podcast. We do reviews and recaps of nerd culture, reality TV, and current events from this week.
Yo, it's the Salaam Nerds. My name is Dean, aka E1&2. I'm here with my boy Chad.
We drop live episodes on YouTube on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. All episodes can also be found everywhere podcasts are found. Thank you to all our supporters. Please help us by subscribing and leaving a good review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Yo, Salaam Nerds. It's your boy Neebs, aka Watch with Neebs, and I am here with a very special guest doing our first ever episode of Star Wars Acolyte. So, welcome to the show, Shah Shahid. How are you doing, bro?
I'm great, man. This is definitely going to be a really good end to a really horrible week for me. So thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on. And yeah, I can't wait to talk Acolyte.
Yeah, man. I'm really excited. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. So I'm a recent shingle survivor. To explain all of this. The joke that I was going to start with is this is what you get after you spend 2 days defending the Acolyte on Twitter. But but no, I'm just I'm an entertainment writer. I'm a film critic, TV critic. I've been doing this for like 14 years now. I'm host of the Split Screen podcast where we do like a lot of Bollywood remakes and we compare them to like the source material that they're adapted from. I say adapt loosely. And yeah, you can find everything from Star Trek, Star Wars to friggin' anime and Bollywood stuff that I sneak in sometimes to my very New York publication at themovieblog.com.
Oh, very cool, man. Everybody check it out if you get a chance. That's super cool. I will definitely check that out, man. That sounds super exciting. A little Bollywood and anime and Star Wars. Well, what else could you want? That sounds super dope. What's your favorite Bollywood and source material comparison?
Oh God. Okay. See, my all-time's got to be Sarkar, which was an official adaptation of The Godfather by Ram Gopal Varma. And he it's not even, you can't even call it like a copy or an adaptation. Like he literally takes The Godfather, puts it in India, changes all the cultural context from like Anglo-Italians in America at the time to like, Mumbai streets. Like, it's so hardcore. And plus you've got Amitabh Bachchan playing The Godfather. Like, come on, you can't beat that. And it's well done. It's really well done.
That's cool. My favorite is I actually like the Dead Poet Society and Mohabbat, whatchamacallit.
Yes.
I love those two.
Yes.
I feel like those are a really good comparison because it's changed just enough where you can just like enjoy it and not feel like it's perfect word, but it still has like the same vibe. It's still the same story.
Yeah.
So I think that's really good.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Kalhonaho and K3G all the way. Those are classic, man. We can't, no hate.
Yeah.
No hate there. All right, listen, you guys are not here for Bollywood. You guys are here for Star Wars. So let's get into it, man. So let's think about overall thoughts. The first 2 episodes dropped. The internet's in a tizzy, as it always is about Star Wars. What are your thoughts about the first 2 episodes?
So I first of all, I like this, and I like all Star Wars. I have my issues with all Star Wars, but for the most part, I'm a fan. I love this shit. Oh, hey man, we can swear right here.
Yeah, you can swear. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, awesome, cool. Because so I like Star Wars. So with the Acolyte, I definitely have criticisms. I enjoyed the first 2 episodes, man. I got into it. I love the performances. I like that Saul is basically Qui-Gon, like the proto Qui-Gon that we'll get in episode 1. I'm liking. Yeah, we'll talk about the flaws, I guess, later on. But no, I'm enjoying it. I like the murder mystery element. I like that they buried the lead in the marketing, where it's like it's not a murder mystery of who's the murderer. It's why. It's what are the motivations of these characters? Why are they behaving in this manner? What is the end game? And how does this new, not new, I mean, how does this pre-existing Jedi Order that's faced no threats for the last, hundreds of years, how do they now deal with something like this? So that's the mystery I'm waiting to see unravel. I liked it, man. I mean, I love the hand-to-hand stuff. I hope that keeps getting better. Um, yeah, I'm sold, but we can discuss details as we go. What do you think?
I thought for me, I treat Star Wars like pizza because you assume no matter where you're gonna get, you're gonna enjoy the pizza unless it's really, really bad pizza, right? So like you would, it's hard to mess up pizza, but people still sometimes do it, right? But I have to say, I am pleasantly surprised. Like I didn't have any expectations going in. I kind of just go in blind to some of these shows. I did not look up what's it's about. I did not look up any of the stars. I kind of just went in blind. I was so excited for Carrie Ann Moss, and then I'm like, oh. Okay, yeah, I see. But it was
Yeah,
obviously here again in flashbacks and stuff, so I'm not too worried about that. But I do like it. I do feel like they're going to open up the world of Star Wars a little bit more and give us a more bigger view of it. You know, people are saying they're a cab of the Jedi's right now because like all they are is just police. They literally had handcuffs. When did the Jedi's have handcuffs? Right. So it's really funny, and I'm really curious about like where this story is going. It's not just the fact that like there's this mystery to it, but also like what are the Jedi's? Right? Are they? For so many years, we saw them as this like force for good, and then slowly we see it unravel a little bit, and now we're
yeah,
like, how bad was it, right? So I'm really excited to explore the lore. I really like that. I know for a lot of people, they want all the good stuff right away, or else they're not buying it, right? They like give me everything, and I don't mind a slow burn, which is what I had with Andor. First 2 episodes of Andor, I was like, what is this? At the end of Andor, it became my favorite Star Wars adaptation of
yep.
anything at all times, right? So I
Okay.
wouldn't be surprised if this goes the same way. I would love to see something like that. We got some comments in here. Someone says the show is giving me Harry Potter, Hunger Games, and Maze Runner vibes, and says I still believe Andor is still the best Star Wars products out there. Maybe Acolyte could beat it. We'll see. Yeah, I don't know. I love the Force Fu, the Kung Fu Force.
Yeah,
I thought that
yeah.
was really cool. There
Little
are
bit better than Ahsoka. A little bit better than Ezra and Ahsoka, right? That was
yeah,
a little.
yeah. I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
There's I enjoy most of the Star Wars. I'm not a Star Wars hater. I think the
Yeah.
only one that I really did not like was Boba Fett, and I was like, it didn't give me anything. That's the only one I really didn't like. And the
Yeah.
rest, I'm just like, it's fine. And like the less Skywalkers are in the thing, the better it's for me. Like my favorite movie is Rogue One. Almost no Skywalkers until like the
Yeah.
very end, right? And then even the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian, love it. No Skywalker until the very end. So like for me, I don't need them. I really don't need them. Just give
Yeah.
me like you can give me a completely new story in the Star Wars world, and I will be perfectly happy with it.
Exactly. Yeah. I recently wrote a feature for the movieblog.com where I talked just about this because Star Wars has like a past problem right now, right? Because everything on TV is very much set between like the franchises, right? It's like Bad Batch just ended. That was like post Order 66 before, the sequels. Mandalorian, same thing. It's after, Return of the Jedi. So we're telling stories in between the stories we've already seen. And it's kind of like either let's move forward to the Ray movie that's going to be out with Shamino Bechinoy. Let's move forward so we're not tied into this canon of what happened, and we have to tie this into that, and this has to connect this way. And I think that Acolyte does that, but in reverse by going so far in the past that,
Yeah,
I mean, fuck, if Yoda shows up, I guess that's fine, but there's no other character that could possibly show up as a cameo. There's no pre-existing lore that they have to connect with. They can tell a very independent, encapsulated story that could tie into the Star Wars lore like you were expecting, but it doesn't really have to. And if it doesn't, that's fucking fine. Like
yeah.
we have 23 things that all connect together. We've got EU novels back there, and we've got Legend series. We can have a Star Wars story that's just right here, and this is the thing. And you can go around telling people that aren't into Star Wars, hey, look at this thing. Maybe if you like this, you can look at the 50 other things they have for the last 45, 50 years. But
I agree.
yeah, man, I would be okay if this was just a thing on its own.
Yeah. And the other thing is like with Andor, we really got to see the harm of the empire as an authoritative fascist state. And now with this, we're really going to see the Jedi's point of view and see how they were and how they were viewed by the public. So I'm really, really curious because this is at the height of the Jedi. And you know what they say at
Yeah.
like when someone's at the height, that's when things all go to shit, right? So I'm really, really
Yep.
curious what's gonna happen. We got some more comments. Kelly says Master Vanessa appears in phase 1 and phase 3 of the High Republic novels. Yes, she
Yeah.
does, but she's pretty not well known outside of the THR novels. I agree. And I think they even show her whip, which we may get to see. I'm really excited to see this Star Wars lightsaber whip. So that's gonna be really cool. So let's get into it. Let's break it down one by one. We're gonna go through Easter eggs and we're gonna give our takes for the show. So again, it's at the end of the High Republic, 100 years before the Empire. I think before they said it was 100 years before the prequel, they ended up changing it to the 100 years before the Empire, which would mean it's 100 years before Revenge of the Sith. So this is that's when the Empire technically becomes there. So I think that's really,
it's very vague languaging, right? It's very vague sort of language of like, what do you mean the Empire? Like the Empire officially came to be on the floor of the Senate, like you said, end of Revenge of the Sith. But like I don't know. It's I feel like it's intentionally vague so they don't have these people going, but wait a minute, let's do the math. You know, so
I like that.
I'm okay with
because
it.
like one of my favorite shows, it's on ABC. It's called The Goldbergs, and it's about like the 80s. And what they do is in order to avoid people nitpicking that like this didn't come out at that time or this wasn't out at the same time as this, they usually start off by saying 1980 something. So they never say the year, they just say something. So it's like kind of like vague. So they can kind of mix and match all of the 80s references into one show. And I feel like Star Wars is kind of doing that too. So I think that's really, really cool. Yeah, I think that's really cool. And then we see the episode start off. We see a young, we don't know. She seems to be force sensitive. She could be a Sith. She could be a Jedi. She goes to this person. She goes, "Where is your Jedi?" Which I was like, oh, she's just kind of being like, you know, I don't recognize Jedis. But then we learned that Jedis are actually posted in places. So like every planet has Jedis posted. So I was really curious about like what she meant by that. Because you know how like parents get mad and they're like, look what your son did, right? It's kind of like that. I thought that's what she was saying. But it looks like
I get it.
They're actually posted there. So I thought that was cool. And then we see this noodle house, which is really strange. We have like a noodle house in the middle of Star Wars. It's like, oh, is it a bar? No, they just make noodles. You can see the noodles in the background.
It's a wholesome bar. It's a family-friendly bar.
Yeah,
it's an Applebee's. Bar. It's Applebee's of Star Wars, you know?
Right? Yeah, they give you like a chocolate lava cake with every every noodle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we see Carrie-Anne Moss here. And she's, she says, attack me with all your might. And she goes, no, we Jedi don't attack people that aren't armed. She goes, yes, you do. And then I'm like, oh shit, what does that mean? Like something's going on. So she messes up all her friends. Then she fights the rest of them. And we see this really cool kung fu martial arts thing. I thought that was really dope.
Yeah.
And then we see the fight, and then Carrie-Anne Moss is kind of just winning. But when she realizes who she is, she brings out her lightsaber and starts getting really serious. Now, my question to you is, does she realize who she really is, or does she think that she is Osha at this point?
Oh, shit. That's a good question. Yeah, see, I think so. The answer to that, I think, lies in the reveal of what did these 4 Jedi do, you know, when May's parents were in that fire, as we learn later on, right? But yeah, that's it. See, yeah, I have so many questions about that because again, this is the first instance of that, like you're saying, that does she recognize May or is she recognizing Osha as, oh, the Jedi that left us?
Yeah.
But that's definitely interesting. I didn't think about that. You're right. But again, that would tie into, you know, Saul saying he saw May die, but like, what? You don't want that surprise when you find out she was alive, you know? So it's kind of interesting. That's a good question, man. Yeah, I didn't think of it like that. I don't know. Maybe. But I guess that's a good question. I guess that my question back would be, would Master Indara be that scared of a Jedi dropout from like years ago to whip out her lightsaber in response? I think that answers your question.
Yeah. That kind of
right?
makes sense because she didn't whip out her lightsaber until that happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I thought was really sad. Also, shout out to her getting a green lightsaber, which is like very Matrix.
Yeah,
I thought that was
yeah, that
cool.
was very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I am.
So
I want to say though. I want to say. Oh, my sister's in here. Cool. Hey, thank you. Um, so my the thing I want to say is again for the High Republic fans, I thought in maybe like 10 years ago, actually even now, depending on where you want to go, I thought Carrie-Anne Moss would be an awesome um, Avatar Chris, or I forget her name, Chris, the lead heroine of the High Republic novels. The book is right there. Avar Chris.
okay,
This is what
yeah,
I'm talking about. Do you know what I mean? I
yeah, yeah.
feel like how they describe her in the books. I feel like Carrie-Anne Moss would have been like the perfect like casting for that, but
Yeah.
we can't do that now. So
Yeah,
thanks,
I
the
mean,
Acolyte.
we got yeah, we got her in Dara, and I don't know too much about what they're gonna do with the character. I know there's gonna be a flashback, which is gonna be interesting.
Yeah,
But I think the fight scene was really cool, very reminiscent of Morpheus and Neo with the blocking. Like,
yeah,
don't
yeah,
try to hit me and hit me. I was like, this is pretty dope.
yeah,
But
yeah. That's pretty cool.
the only way to kill her was basically she went after a civilian, and as Carrie-Anne Moss tried to stop
Right.
that, she threw the second dagger, and she basically killed her. Now, there's a lot of people on the internet all in a tizzy about this, so let's have a little conversation. So there's two things. Number
So
one, go ahead. What are you gonna say?
no. So here's the thing. I'm gonna preface something which I'm gonna keep coming back to throughout this conversation.
Sure.
I want to talk about the fact that these fans on the internet that nitpick these certain scenes, and I'm going to bring this up in this scene as well. There's a scene beyond that, which is what the storytellers intended, full of meaning, depth, substance, and fucking emotion that we are not talking about because we're talking about the science of something or the biology of something or the fucking chemistry of something. And
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
and I'm just going to put that out there and I'll keep coming back to it with this scene with how Indara dies is like such beautiful fucking writing because thank you, honey. That's my, you should be in bed, but thank you. But what it indicates, first of all, is she doesn't die saving herself. She dies because she's saving it from getting killed.
Right.
So in that split second, you're setting up that because later on we suspect that Indara and the other three might have done something bad. But when we meet Indara, even though she doesn't speak and we only see her fighting, they establish the fact that this is a good person, right?
They do.
We don't attack unarmed people. And she took her attention off of her enemy, which regardless of the fighting style, you're not supposed to do. But she did so to protect an innocent from harm's way, thereby unintentionally sacrificing herself. So you establish in this scene that this is a good person being killed. We don't know who this is. We don't care. We're not emotionally invested, but they're establishing that this is a good Jedi. There's nothing shady about this person. They don't deserve this. They're getting killed for no reason, as far as we know at this moment.
Right.
That's what the payoff of this scene is. But sure, let's talk about how many inches from the heart the blade was. Like, fuck, come on. You know?
I know. It's pretty funny. I don't love any of the takes because honestly, like, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that you can explain some of these things away. But even if you can't, it's to serve the story, right? Sometimes people die from a blade, sometimes they don't, and it's all to serve a story. It's whatever the writer wants to happen. So let's be for real. Let's be for real. It doesn't matter. You can explain anything away if you wanted to, right? You could say that, oh, it didn't hit any vital organs, or the lightsaber cauterized itself because it's on fire, or you can say nothing. You can say it sliced through that person like it sliced it through a vault. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Or you can just say that, you know, the blade had poison on it, or she got an infection, or nobody came to help her, whereas Sabine was rescued very quickly and given medical attention. So also this is like 100 years or 200 years later, which has advances in medicine and stuff. So things are never consistent in Star Wars.
I sent out a tweet about this earlier, and it's like, listen, like you just did, we can all rant off a bunch of made up explanations for this other made up thing that happened that someone literally fucking made up that you're arguing. Like there's no point, there's no logic behind this argument because we're arguing about things that are made up with other things that we can make up. Like, it doesn't make sense. And that's why I'm trying to talk about the fact that the point of Indara was not how she died. It's listen, you cast a famous actress in this role because you know the character is dying in minutes. So you can't afford the audience to connect to this unknown character. But guess what? The audience loves Carrie Ann fucking Moss.
That's a good
So
point.
you cast her immediately. You're bringing in that attraction, that excitement. Everyone that's saying, "Oh man," like you said earlier, right? I wanted to see more of Carrie. That's the point. They couldn't invest you in the character. They got you with the actor. Her death is what moves the story forward. All this bullshit about if she survives or not, yes, but the story needed her to die. Like if you, and again, and I'm not shitting on any examples that I'm gonna bring up, but if you were okay with John Wick fucking tumbling down a skyscraper onto fucking pavement and surviving, like I'm not bitching. Like I love John Wick movies. I'm not arguing about that. I'm just saying that if we can totally like turn our brain off and go, yo, one brick would like kill me. Like anyone else, like, and it's not even about skill. It's like luck. It's pure luck at that point. Like you're ping-ponging off, like one crack somewhere else and you're dead. Like doesn't matter how hard you're falling.
Oh yeah.
But we're suspending disbelief, right? We're like, we fucking love this character. We love this universe. We want to see more of this shit. Let's go. So we kind of ignore it. So it's like, if you're not doing that, I don't feel like you're enjoying it. And if you're not enjoying it, why the fuck are you watching?
You know why? Rage bait. These tweets, people, if you ever see a tweet that's rage baiting and you see a blue check mark, know that that person is making money off that tweet. Do not retweet it. Do not quote it. Take a screen cap of it if you want, but never engage in those because that's what it is. And if we keep engaging with this and we keep rage engaging with it, they're going to make money. And that's really what it's all about. It's all about making money, getting clicks, getting views. And it's not about like actually enjoying the art that we're getting, right? So if these people want to do that, let them do that. I really don't care. I enjoyed it. Doesn't make a difference to me.
I was a little triggered with the Acolyte. I won't lie. I've been pretty good like the last fucking 13 years on Twitter, but I don't know, man. I don't know what about. I'm gonna blame the shingles. I think it's just my weakened immune system. I think I was I just started fucking going nuts on people.
Someone in the comments says, someone in the comments, nerd speech in the comments, and suspension of disbelief only applies to white male driven stories. That is so true. Because let's be real. The next part we see Osha, she wakes up. Oh, by the way, I was really confused here because I was like, I didn't read anything about it. I didn't know she was a twin. I didn't know any of that. I was like, what is going on here? Right. And then she goes outside and there's a fire and then she's putting out a fire and people were like, there's no such thing as fire in space. And I'm like, motherfucker, you can't have lasers in space. You can't have explosions in space. You can't have sound in space. This has been from the first Star Wars. Like in the vacuum of space, you cannot have lasers. Lasers need something to bounce off of. They need dust. They need follicles. They need something for it to bounce off of. In a vacuum, you cannot have lasers. You can't have blasters. You can't have any of this stuff. So miss me with that fire. Also, what do you think happens when a plane explodes? There's fire in the plane. That's been around since like the first Star Wars, bro. But those had a white male leads, and nobody questions things when there's white male leads, which kind of brings me up. People are just realizing The Boys is a woke show. The entire show is about capitalism, consumerism. It's the most woke show there is, but they hide it by casting 2 white male leads and putting lots of gore, sex, and violence in it, and people forget that is woke. And that's it. That's it. That's the secret sauce. People are too dumb to know what woke is to the point where that word has no meaning anymore.
You gotta put some white sauce over the message, for them to eat it. That's what you gotta do.
The chicken and rice of.
So you gotta put a secret sauce in there. The secret sauce is justice. But no, so like even this scene, like the fire in space discourse is so fucking stupid because like, and again, and it doesn't even matter what evidence you provide to these people, right? Because it's like George Lucas said, I don't give a shit about the science. I'm talking about the story. I'm talking about the fantasy, the fucking high concept shit that I'm, adapted from other sources, whatever. But that's what he wants. That's what's been happening all these years. Like again, like you said, no sound in space, no pew pew pew, no laser noises, no ka-chunk and da da da. Like you don't have those, no screeching away of the TIE fighters. You don't have any of that in space. But it doesn't matter because again, as I'm coming back to this point, this moment of her seeing fire and pausing and kind of hesitating and the voices that she's hearing, is foreshadowing a deeper character development plot point that's gonna come later.
Right.
But we're so fucking distracted by fire in space that we're not talking about a pretty good moment, a very important moment so early on in the show.
Right.
And that's why like criticism is fucking like dead. Like people aren't, this isn't criticism. You're just pointing things out that weren't done properly, which cool, you're right. But that does nothing to the story. That's not doing anything to the plot or my enjoyment of it. Like,
No, it definitely doesn't. And some of them are even more dumb because I remember when Andor came out, people were like, the Death Star had screws, they had they had nuts and bolts. People were mad that the Death Star had nuts and bolts, and I was like, yo, this is so wild. So it's funny that people will
oh my
always find
God.
something to complain with, and they can cry into the void because I really don't care. I'm here to enjoy good stories,
Yeah.
right? That's what we're here for. We're here for the stories and we're here for the characters. And if you can get the story right, you get the characters right, I don't care about anything else. It really doesn't matter to
Yeah.
me. So
Yeah.
it is what it is. But yeah, that was really cool. We see Osha, which also I think is really funny that she's working on a ship with fire, and she's called Osha, like, which is really funny.
I
If you
got
don't know,
that too.
Osha,
I'm not
Osha is
even
the
American. I got that.
yeah, OSHA is the construction thing. So it's like, oh, OSHA certified and like get like OSHA clearance, which is really, really funny. Yeah, so we see OSHA and she is visited by two Jedis. And one of them that she actually knows, and we learned that she was a former Jedi who left the order. Very Ahsoka vibes, right? So I thought that was cool. And they question her about where she is, and then they bring in the bartender. The bartender says it was her, and they take her into jail. At this point, what were your thoughts about like what's going on with the story?
At this point, like, what did I think of the story? Sorry, the chat's distracting me. I apologize. No, I mean, so up until this point, I think the intention was for them to mislead us and think that, this is the character that we saw kill Indara, right? That,
Yeah.
acolyte by day, mechanic by night kind of vibes, right?
Yeah.
But first of all, I gotta talk about the fact that two Jedis boarded a Nymodian Trade Federation ship, which is
Yeah.
basically the opening of the Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
So I thought that was fucking cool. And then I'm like, what's happening again?
Flashbacks.
But yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, at this point, like, we know it's not her.
Yeah.
But we're also not sure because, like, I noticed that the hair length was a little off. So I'm like, okay, like, they clearly want us to think this is her. So I
Yeah.
already think it's not. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I'm already kind of there. But yeah, I mean, I liked Soul. Well, it was Yord that comes in, right? And
Yord
they
comes
kind of
in.
chat, like they know each other, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all that was cool. I mean, that was fine. I think Yord had a very strong introduction. He's one of my favorite characters so far, but like for very different reasons as we might get into later. But
I'm curious. Is it the nipples? You got to see the nipples? Is that why?
so here's, like, not to give fodder to these guys, but like I was very surprised that none of these, Star Wars people and like Disney Star Wars sucks. None of these people, I haven't heard anyone comment on the fact that, hey, did you just Marvel Star Wars with an obligatory shirtless scene?
Yeah.
Like, did that just happen? Like, I was like, oh, people aren't gonna like this. Like, that was my reaction. But like, nope, fire in space takes precedence over that, I guess.
Yeah.
Which I thought was more blatant.
Also, there's ironing in space. You got to steam iron your robes. I always wondered how they kept them so crisp.
Can't you just force?
Can't
like,
you? Yeah,
white?
can you just force iron your clothes? That's so funny.
This is why I always say that do not give me any sort of power. I will find a way to abuse it in some form or capacity. I'm just taking the trash out, like with the force from like the porch.
Yeah.
But no, I like Yord. I like Yord because I definitely feel like Yord is either going to have a very realistic awakening of what he thinks the Force is and the Jedi are supposed to be, or he will have a complete breakdown and go totally on the other side of things.
Yeah.
That's my prediction for Yord.
I'm excited to see where Yord goes because right now he seems like a stick in the mud, follow the rules, by the book kind of cop, right? And we're gonna see where he goes from there. Which, because like this person, Osha, is a friend of his, and he's treating her as if he's never seen her before, not giving her any special, like special
Yeah, that's true.
circumstances or anything like that. He's just like
Like she's very
by the
familiar with him, but he's just kind of like, yes, prisoner, blah blah blah.
right. So I'm really curious
Yeah,
to
you're
see
right.
where he goes. Like he even follows her into the room and later on, which I think is really funny. He's like, "Don't trust this person," even though like that's your boy, yo. I don't know. I thought that
Yeah,
was really
yeah.
really weird.
But it's also cool because it was like he cleared her, but like very like cautiously. Like he just
Yeah.
strolls into the room and everyone's like, "Explain yourself," and he's like, "She didn't do it." And I'm just like, "What? Why is this? What is this
Yeah, yeah.
sass? Like what the fuck?"
I know, I know. So we'll see. I'm really excited to see what happens with that. So Osha gets captured. She's put in jail, but then she escapes, and they set this thing up where they have the robots are actually the chairs in the ship, which I love. I thought that was so cool.
So fucking brilliant. Like totally changes what we think of like droid autopilot. Like he's
Yeah.
literally in the seat, so when you get up, it takes over. And I'm like, this is like just fucking that. Whoever designed that needs a fucking raise. Like I stopped and rewound that and watched it like 3 more times. So I'm like, that's brilliant.
See, my mind is twisted because the only thing I could think of is how many people farted on that robot. Like, that's all I kept thinking about. Which is
Oh, I wish
so
they had like a Star Wars lower decks type of show about
Yeah.
like the lowly droids of Star Wars and just like, but like rated R, so they could like curse or whatever. Oh, that'd be
It's
really
like a
weird.
reality show, like Below Deck, but it's like all the starships. Oh man, that was cool. There's an escape. May reaches for what you call it, the keys, and her force doesn't work. She's not super force sensitive, even though her sister is. Another like differentiating because that they're two different people. I thought that was really
Yeah.
cool. And then we kind of get like this little idea of like what's happening. Also, I did wanted to mention when May was fighting Indara, she kept going for her lightsaber, but when she killed her, she left the lightsaber right there. She didn't even pick it up, didn't take it. What's that all about? Because she does it again later with Soul. She
She's gonna
keeps
do it with
reaching
Soul,
for
yeah.
the lightsaber, but she wants to kill them without a weapon, which is so strange to me. And I'm very
interesting.
curious.
I noticed that with Saul, and you're right. Yeah, now that I'm looking back on it, because there's last shot too. Isn't the shot from like the ground with the lightsaber in the foreground and her walking away in the background?
Walking
Because I was
away, yeah.
expecting at some point for her to come and grab. Like I thought that's why that shot was there. Because I'm like, oh,
Yep.
she's gonna turn around and come grab it, but she
Yeah.
didn't. So I'm like, oh, interesting. I didn't connect that. Yeah, that's very interesting. I don't know why.
Yeah, it gave me very much like the Dark Knight Rises vibes when like Bane breaks Batman's back and leaves the mask on the floor and walks away. That's kind of the vibe that it gave me.
That's a
Yeah.
very good comparison. Yeah, that's very good. So what I'm liking about this show that I think is very different from other Star Wars lore that we've seen so far, there seems to be a focus from the Master, the bad guy, of having to kill a Jedi without using a weapon.
Yeah.
And throughout the series, also we're seeing that the Jedi. So, for example, Jackie, Daphne Keene, the character Daphne Keene's playing, who is Soul's Padawan.
Padawan, yeah.
Her and Soul do not at all ignite their lightsabers these first 2 episodes, right?
Yeah.
So, and even in Dara, like we talked about, she doesn't do it until the last resort, and there's a talk of, you only draw your lightsaber to kill. Like there seems to be less of an emphasis on like this school thing that we like about Star Wars. Like even in this show with lightsabers, we're seeing people kind of not relying too much on that. And then you have the bad guy going, well, we have to kill a Jedi. I feel like there's this focus on what do we think the Jedi are? Because again, you talk to kids and Jedi are laser swords and lightsabers, and I feel like this series is trying to say something about that. I'm still not sure what yet, but I think it's going to make us re-examine the Jedi in a different way that I think might help us understand the prequels better, but maybe not with that intention. Like what I'm noticing too, you realize like they're not as rigid as we saw in the prequels. You know how in the prequels it's like anytime someone said anything about attachment or feelings, you'd be like, that's blasphemous talk.
Yeah.
Like, it's very like hush hush, and they're like so like scared that someone's gonna like narc on them or something. Whereas here, like when Vanessa first meets Saul and tells him about what's going on, she flat out questions it. She's like, "Oh, you're too close to whatever. Like you still have feelings for her." She said something. I underestimated the feelings you have for her, or your attachment to her, or something like that. So it's like they're openly talking about their feelings. They're kind of even doubting themselves or questioning each other, but
Mhm.
it's not like as rigid as like, hey, shut the fuck up, don't say anything, right? Like it
Yeah,
seems
yeah.
like they are allowed to have that flexibility of like, hey, yeah, the Jedi path is not, it's a little crazy, da da da. And so I'm wondering if this incident is what leads us to the Jedi in the prequels that are a lot more rigid and a lot more like religious almost, and a lot more like structured and like you can't question, and which eventually is what leads to their downfall, which is what the prequels are all about. But I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if this is going to be like a gateway moment into how they eventually become like that.
Yeah, because like I always thought of the Jedis as not like this perfect utopia type of like negotiators and peacekeepers, because like in the time of the Jedi, like they let a lot of bad stuff happen. Like they let slavery exist, right? So they can't be all
Right.
good if they're letting slavery exist. So it's one of those things
Mm-hmm.
where I'm just like, maybe here is where we're gonna learn about like, what where their intentions really lies and what they really do. Because in here they feel more like cops than peacekeepers, whereas in the prequels
Yeah.
they felt like peacekeepers, negotiators, and here they feel like cops. And I feel like maybe the Clone Wars was a little bit of both, which is very, very interesting. So I'm very curious
It
about like where they're gonna take it.
it feels to me like it's like less police, but more like like it's like almost like police, but like missionaries. Like how in like the back in the
Yeah,
frontier times, you had like every town had like an outpost that had like a sheriff or like a deputy or like
yeah,
someone
yeah.
that assigned to that town. They have the support of like the larger federal government, but they're on their town responsible. So when you see Jedi's being outposted on planets, that's kind of what it feels like. That hey,
Mm,
you're kind of like the sheriff of this planet,
yeah,
just to keep the peace and enforce things if shit goes down. And then if you need help, we've got like backup at the council or whatever on
yeah,
Coruscant.
yeah,
That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from it. Just because again, there's the temple, but again, there's security. There's like it's almost like they're like sheriff kind of military people kind of a thing. But it's interesting because again, they don't feel rigid to me. That's the thing. Like even that guy when the security when they're like, oh yeah, someone broke in, blah blah. Blah, that guy seems so chill, and he's a Jedi
yeah,
at a temple, and he was just so like relaxed. He's like, yeah, someone came in, like, we don't know what the fuck happened, and I'm like, the fuck is a Jedi? Like, usually he'd be
yeah.
like, we are not aware of the situation. Like, they're very like royal and like kind of like priests, whereas in this show they seem like just regular people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I get that. That makes a lot of sense. So I'm trying to figure out like where they're gonna go from that. So that's really exciting. So let's see what else happens. We find out that we find Daphne Keene's character, Jackie, ends up showing up. And why after this crash happens, Osha has all these like memories and visions of like her sister, and this is where she kind of figures out that she's real. There's like this creepy nursery rhyme, and you're kind of like, oh snap, what's happening here? They actually have like a jump scare in one of the scenes where you see the shadows in the back, which I
Yeah.
thought was really cool. I thought that was really exciting. And then they have this like scene and she wakes up again. So it's kind of like a dream within a dream where you're kind of like, oh snap, are you being
Mm-hmm.
faked out? Which I thought was really cool. And then they have this fugitive moment where she's like, I didn't do it. And she kind of like jumps off and then he catches her. And then Yorda's like,
Yeah.
yeah. And then Yorda's like, put her in cuffs, follow the rules. And he's like, no, it's
Yeah.
fine, which I think is really interesting. So when Soul meets her and they finally, meet up, what are your thoughts there? Like, where do you think the story is going at this point?
Um. So again, I'm surprised people aren't bitching about this as hard as they should. My
Yeah.
first reaction was like, oh man, another master apprentice former story. Like people shat all over that in Ahsoka. So I'm
Yeah.
like, people are not gonna like this. Like, but again, well, don't no one seems to have a problem with it. So, but I mean, I thought it was cool. Like, I'm loving Saul from the minute he appears on screen. He is like my absolute favorite character. Um,
Yeah.
of the actor, he is so good.
He
You know,
barely knows any English, and he's, like, just, like, killing it.
crazy, crazy. Just
Yeah.
excuse me, hearing that was crazy. Like he is so subtle, which is like excuse me, which is what I expect a Jedi to be. Like he's showing emotion, but it's like so beneath like 5 layers of like decorum.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not right to the surface, which is like intentional. I'm loving it, man. This guy's like the best. I love his dynamic with Jackie, the new Padawan. Daphne is
Yeah.
awesome. I hope she gets more to do. I hope she's not just like a side character here.
Eh.
Um,
Also, I love how they're taking all
like
these like names and giving them like Arabic accents, like Jackie. It's like Star
yeah,
Wars has always been taking a lot from Middle Eastern cultures and South Asian cultures.
they've been very like Southeastern Middle Asian sort of coded
Yeah.
in
Oh,
a lot of like Ahsoka right
yeah.
away.
Ahsoka to the
Yeah.
planet called Jeddah. Like, come on, just like
Yeah.
the Jedi robes are basically Moroccan. Kyber crystals are like
There's
literally the Khyber's mountains of Pakistan.
right.
Like,
There's literal like there's so much stuff that I'm like, how did the fundamentalists let us get away with this?
yeah, yeah. The
Like, where
Mandalorians.
was the protest for this?
Yeah. Like nobody's protesting how the Mandalorians are basically hijabis who can't take off their helmets. Like, come on.
Yeah.
You don't think that's woke?
Hmm.
It's so funny to me.
Oh man, no, I like their dynamic. I also like, and again, I hate to compare to Ahsoka, but I also like that. Notice how we're not talking about why she left the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
Like the show's not focusing on that. It was a very like she just said something. Hey, I was part of it. I moved on. It's my decision. That's the end of that. And like the story doesn't even focus on that. Like that question is still there, but like their interactions aren't colored by that. They're not constantly making us go, "Oh my god, it's tense. What happened?" Like
Yeah.
which was all Ahsoka felt like. Like it was a lot of forced tension, where it's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, they're looking at each other weird. Oh my god, are they gonna talk?" Like it was
Mm.
just where this show didn't have that because it's like, well, here's a larger story, and maybe we'll
Yep.
explore this, maybe we won't, but that doesn't affect this. And I like that. I like when they don't manufacture drama and kind of comes organically.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I do want to talk about a little bit of the master apprentice thing that's happening here, and maybe some theories on who this person could be, because there are people that think that it might be Darth Plagueis, or it could be Tenebus, or it could be Shiv himself, and we don't know. It's a little bit crazy of like what people think is actually happening here, because is May the apprentice, or does the Sith with the red sword, is he the apprentice and there's another master
Mm.
on top of him? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, first of all, I'd be curious about this new title in the Sith hierarchy
Yeah.
because now we've got Master Apprentice Acolyte, or is it Master
Yeah.
Acolyte Apprentice?
Ooh, good
Um,
point. Because an acolyte is
yeah,
basically
because
just
I'm
apprentice.
right, or like a follower, right, like a disciple,
Right.
right? So I'm curious about that because I think it's a misdirect to think that the Acolyte is the lowest level because the implication we got is that May's the Acolyte, right? Because she has to go
Yeah.
kill. Sounds like a rite of passage almost, right?
Right.
But again, I don't know what that means in that hierarchy. I mean, and again, we're also assuming this is a Sith. Maybe this is not. This is like a proto Sith because I don't know if the Sith at this time exists.
I think they
From my
existed.
understanding, no.
I think they existed before and they were wiped out,
Okay.
but they hide in twos. So basically it's just like two of them and they
So
rise
at
from
this
that.
time in the story, the
They
Sith
there are
were a
many. Yeah.
thing.
They were
They were a thing,
before
but they're
and they were
not.
gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And
if
then
they see a red lightsaber, they could easily be like, "Oh yeah, we know what that is." So it shouldn't be
yeah,
like a big deal,
I think
right? Okay.
so. Yeah. Yeah, I believe so. I think
Because
that's the
my
way.
because my understanding was like when people freaked out about the whole red lightsaber in the trailer, and they're like, "Wait a minute, like, oh, what was it? Obi-Wan or someone said in Phantom Menace or something, right?"
Yeah.
Because retcons aren't a thing, but like a totally different conversation for another day. But
Yeah.
no, so like for me, it's like the way red lightsabers are created are by force users. There's a whole process of like bleeding your rage and hate into the kyber crystal to
Right.
make it turn red. So my thing is like that has to have happened once by someone
Yeah.
in a desperate enough, crazy enough situation for that to have accidentally happened for them to discover that this is a thing we can do and
Yep.
pass that knowledge on. So I'm just saying, what if in this timeline, again, if the Sith didn't exist, if you're saying they were around, then I guess my theory falls apart. I thought this would be the story of like how that one person first did it and sort of like
Yeah.
the creation of the Sith. But you're saying no, they existed from prior to,
No,
right?
I believe they existed prior, and then I believe like
Okay.
we have like Darth Sidious, whose master was Darth Plagueis, and then Darth
Vegas, yeah.
Plagueis' master was Tenebus, and I believe that's who people think this person is, right?
Oh, okay.
So Tenebris also must have a
Interesting.
master. So I'm really curious about like how far that goes back. But I believe there is lore of Siths existing before that. But I think that's really, really
Okay.
interesting.
Okay.
The other thing
Yeah,
is
I'm curious to see how it works.
yeah, I'm curious to see how it works. You could be right. It's possible that I could be wrong, but if I'm I don't think I'm misremembering, but we'll see. But we
Can we
see
just ask the
May.
chat?
Yeah, May goes into this Jedi's temple and she tries to fight him, and literally nothing can get through. Super concentrating force field, and then she just gives up and leaves, which I thought is really funny because like this guy doesn't really do anything. Also, he's Tomlin from Game of Thrones, so like dude just loves to
Yeah.
be in a few scenes and suicide. Like that's just his thing now.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I guess there's more story to come with that
Yeah,
actor age down in flashbacks. So I get it, but it's so obvious when they take like a young kid and they age him up with like prosthetic. Like it's so
yeah.
obvious that when I first saw him, I'm like, this feels weird. And then when I realized that, oh, I see what's gonna happen. Okay, I get it. So he's a young kid. I
Yeah.
guess it makes sense.
But I did like this idea where she went back and she got poisoned. The poison is from her home planet. And
Yeah,
you know, Manny from the Good Place makes it and gives it to him. And then basically she does not try to kill him or force him to take it. She basically just convinces him to take poison. So now you're like, holy shit, they must have done something really, really bad for this person to take this
yeah.
Ashra vow and then break it and then take this poison. That's where I'm like, okay, now the story is unfolding. Now we're getting to the crux of like what the mystery is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the moment where you're like, oh, hold on, they definitely did something. Because
Yeah,
that character's suicide essentially kind of proves to you that something was so horrible that they did that the guilt from all these years ago is literally killing himself. Like he killed himself
yeah,
because of that guilt. So it's not even so right now it's not even a debate of is May wrong? Did those four Jedi do something terrible or not? That's not the
yeah,
debate anymore because again, clearly this person thinks they did do something wrong enough that he killed himself over it. The question is, what the fuck was it? And like we're sitting here going, I love Saul and Indira was great because it was Trinity. I'm just wondering when this reveal happens, how is that going to change how we look at these characters?
yeah. That's a
And
great
how is
point.
that going to affect this conversation and you know how we feel about
Yeah.
May and Osha and everything else?
Well, just like the way you started out this conversation, you were like, okay, so we know that Indra sacrificed herself to save this person, and we know that she's a good person. So now we're like, oh,
Right.
this is a really good person. But now to see this person take the poison willingly, you're like, this really good person who
Wait
we
a
saw in the
minute.
beginning just die must have done something really bad. And now my biggest fear is where the show falls apart. If what they did is not bad enough, it kind of ruins
Yeah.
it for me. It's gotta be
Yeah.
bad. And I hope they don't pull punches. I hope they just go, they fucked up. They did something really bad.
Yeah.
They spent the rest of their life trying to make up for it, but they did something really bad. Because if it's like some kind of misunderstanding, that's a cop out. I feel like you gotta go
Yeah.
full. You gotta go
Yeah.
full
Yeah.
on.
No, May, that's not what happened. You're misremembering because you were little and trauma. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not gonna, yeah, it's gonna be pretty fucked up. Um, I'll throw something else at you. Or you know what? Maybe we'll wait until episode two. Maybe we'll get into it in episode two.
Well, let's talk about
But
episode 2 because I think this is we're in episode 2 right now because that's when she fights the monk, right? That's when she goes.
right, yes, that's right.
So we're kind of in episode 2. We kind of see that happening. And you know, we find out this idea about like the no weapons thing, and she talks to
Yeah,
this Darth, whoever this person is, and the thing that this person says really sticks out to me, and it's that peace is a lie. And now I'm like, oh shit. Am I gonna be
mm,
rooting for the Sith? Because I might be. Because I am very like, wait, no,
yeah,
I can understand that because like there are things happening in the world where you know they pretend like things are peaceful, but really people are slowly oppressing other people. And Andor makes a mention of this. They said the Empire had their hands on our throat and they've been squeezing it so slowly that we don't realize we're being choked. And that's why in Andor, what they do is they have a terrorist attack, which is a form of accelerationism, where these people are evil, they are bad. And what you do is you kind of accelerate what they're doing instead of letting them do it slowly. And when they accelerate
Oh, okay.
what they're doing, it kind of shows their hand, and everybody realizes, oh shit, they're kind of bad.
Oh,
And things like that are kind of happening in the real world, where like, attacks happen and people take that and then they show you who they really are, right? And it's like, this is what we've been trying to tell the world. These people are trying to commit genocide and stuff. These things happen.
right.
So now I'm thinking, like, this idea that peace is a lie, that Jedi are basically there to keep peace while some of these planets are still oppressing their people. And are the Sith the real ones that are like, hey, all this order is an illusion, it's not real, the only type of peace you could have is complete freedom and anarchy and stuff like that? So are they anarchists? I don't know. So now it's like adding layers to the Sith lore,
Yeah.
that they're not just evil, they have a philosophy that they believe in. And now I'm really, really curious about where this is going to go. Because if I start rooting for the Sith, that's going to be wild.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely interesting because again, like you said, if the Jedi and the Galactic Republic right now are, hi Joseph, if they're like sort of like the 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 people in power essentially, I don't want to say power, but like there's no opposition, they're not fighting rebellions, like they're the ones setting the standard, they're the ones setting the rules and everything else.
Right.
So what does that do to an administration, especially a group like the Jedi who are so high and mighty, who do have powers, who can do things that the average everyday person cannot? What does that do to you as a mindset, as a group of enforcers, when you
Yeah.
start thinking you are above the everyday person, and how does that organization change, and how do they deal with what's happening in the real world, and are some of them out of touch like Yord, are some of them a little more flexible, and I
Yeah.
think that's what we might be exploring here with this kind of thing.
Mhm.
You know, four cops, like how this is playing out. This is playing out like a gangland drama.
Mm.
You know those stories where it's like about cops and something happens and someone from the past comes back and they're gonna confront the dirty secret, and that one
Yeah.
night 10 years ago they stole the heist money, shit like that.
Yeah.
That's what this is kind of shaping up to be. It's like, what did these four Jedi do?
Yeah. Yeah. People in the comments said they have some comments. Yeah. Feel free to share whatever you think about that, and we will read it out and we'll discuss it for sure. Yeah. No, that's a good point. I totally agree with you. It kind of does have that vibe, which is very interesting. Also, you know what else it kind of reminds me of? A little bit of Kill Bill. It's got some Kill Bill vibes where they're
Yeah.
doing something like acting, and she has a list of people that she has to kill. And there was a character in Kill Bill, I don't remember who it was, but their line was like, that lady deserves a revenge. We all deserve to die. And that's kind of where I feel like Master Torben was like taking the poison. He was like, yeah, we kind of deserve to die. We did some messed up stuff. So I'm really curious about this stuff.
I think when Lena Headey, or sorry, Leslie Headland pitched the show to Lucasfilm, she described it as Frozen meets Kill Bill.
Frozen? So okay. So the two sisters. Yeah, I can see that.
Two sisters, sparring sisters on opposing sides meets Kill Bill, or one of them. So yeah, you kind of, the first two episodes kind of give you that right away, right?
Do you want to build a Death Star?
No, that's the right answer.
We got some comments right here. Joseph says, could it be possible that this story is not about the Sith, but actually about the Jedi who are now corrupt, and the Acolyte killed the corrupt Jedi? Remember when a Jedi erased the archive? Your thoughts? I really do think that that's possible. I really do think that, I feel like the vibes I'm getting is that the Jedis are the bad guys. And the fact that they're starting off as these cops is kind of painting that picture, which is really interesting because like in the 80s, we always were taught that, like that the cops are the good guys. And then in the 90s, the military is the good guys. Then in the 2000s, superheroes are the good guys. And now we're getting to the point where we've been oversaturated with all these good guys. And now we're like, wait, the bad guys are the good guys. So this might be a whole new world that we're going through, right? So I would not put it past them. I would not put the past them to be like the Jedi's are corrupt, because Jedi's has always had a hint of corruption, and Qui-Gon always felt it. Doku always felt it. If you watch some of these stories, you know that there's always been a hint, and there's always been some Jedi's who are kind of like, I don't think what they're doing is 100% right.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Like Dooku was a Jedi first. Yeah, he was a Jedi first.
He was a Jedi first. Yeah.
So again, how many Sith Lords were originally Jedi that turned, right? So that's actually a very good point, Joseph. Yeah, I mean, this could be sort of the beginnings of that, right? You know, maybe the Sith are Jedi that turned, like they moved so far away from the Order that, you know, yeah, and the Acolyte might be just trying to get ahead of that, basically, you know. That's very interesting. I've never, that's actually very interesting, possibly, yeah. So I was wondering, I'm like, the Sith being the bad guys of the show almost feels like a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
If you want to do something different, you would kind of fuck with that expectation. Like, and that's why, like, the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm like, yeah, we saw a red lightsaber, but there's no explicit Sithness in the actions of these characters.
Honestly, they haven't done anything bad. Only thing May has done is kill people who possibly deserve it. And one of them
May's out for revenge. Right.
One of them did it voluntarily.
And it's personal revenge.
Yeah.
And like that's personal revenge. It seems like a very personal story so far. You got two sisters and shit like that. So it's hard to see where this master comes into play and what their end game is. But yeah, like I'm not seeing anything that says Sith to me right now, except for a red lightsaber, which again might not have anything to do with the Sith based on how we know they're made, right?
What did
a force user who's just angry, right? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was gonna. What do you think about the Parent Trap scene where they switch places and go into the shop and try? Did you like that, or do you think that was kind of corny?
Yeah, that was a little. I feel like that entire bit was for Jackie to get one up over Yord. I think that was the only reason, because that to me was much more interesting than how it played out. Like the plan, like Yord was like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, and she's like, yeah, or this. And then Saul's like, yeah, let's do that. so I'm like, I feel like that was interesting. I do like. So, how do you feel about Kimir?
Kimir?
Yeah, he's buddy.
He's the comedy relief.
DJ
and
music.
I feel like he's a comedy relief. I don't mind him so much. I'm a big fan of the actor, so I kind of have a soft spot for him because I love The Good Place. But yeah, I did see that as being a little cheesy, but I don't mind the actor. I don't fault the actor for it. I feel like the scene was written that way.
So this isn't me, but I see it now. This is a theory from somewhere else, somewhere on the internet. So a lot of people are thinking Kimir might be the master or the ultimate bad guy of the show. And again, and at first it sounds like one of those things where it's like, yes, let's pick the least likely character to be, just to like throw it out there. But if you kind of take a look at how those moments played out from a different point of view, they seem less cheesy and a lot more calculated. So first of all, I suspect anyone who is so overtly incompetent or acts like it, you know, like so laid back, so casual. No, don't tell me. No, here's some poison. He's just he's too sniveling of a character. But then he has these moments where it's very creepy. So this moment where we do the pen trap switch, when she comes in and she says hi awkwardly, he says hi back awkwardly, because again, we've established she's comic relief, right?
Yeah.
And they have this interplay. And then right before the moment where he says, you look exactly like her. The thing that we didn't realize, again, this is on me, someone pointed this out to me, and I'm like, this is fucked up. Because in that moment, Osha does not know May is alive. May does not know Osha is alive. Why does Kimir say you look exactly like her? How does he know this is either May's sister or Osha, whatever? How does he know that if he's just some stoner fucking helping her kill these guys? If he's supposed to be her sidekick.
Not only that, but at the very end, when he comes up behind her and she attacks him, he dodges every single hit.
He gets the drop on her, even though she got the drop on him originally. So he's not. If he can take over, and we've seen May is fucking capable. She just took on Indara by herself and won. You know, so she's capable. So if this guy who's like, oh, I'm just a drunk, can like dodge it from behind and then like turn the tables on her. Who the fuck is this?
It's a
You
good
know?
theory. That's a good theory. Yeah,
And how
yeah.
did he know about the sister? That's the thing. Because no one in the show knew about them being alive. Not even Saul and the others who supposedly were there. So
Yeah.
how does he know that she looks like who? Who did what? That's to me,
so-
that got me. That and
That
then
is
and then
true.
the dodging scene got me.
That is true. Joseph has another comment. He goes, "The show is a murder mystery. What if Soul is actually a Sith master disguised as a Jedi?" And remember, they say the murder mysteries have unexpected twists. That is true. But what if Soul has a twin? That
No,
would be
no.
crazy.
I feel
Like,
like it would be a little crazy because the way they set this guy up as a Qui-Gon of this era, I
yeah,
feel like. But what's going to be heartbreaking is when you find out whatever the fuck he did.
yeah.
And I
Because
definitely think Saul's not making it through the season.
yeah, and he did something because you could tell that it weighs heavy on him. It weighs
Well,
heavy on most of them,
yeah.
to be honest.
His
And I'm really
giveaway was when he was like May is dead. I saw her die, and then literally 30 seconds later he finds out that she's alive, and he does not seem surprised. So
no.
I don't know. That could be just like maybe like an editing thing or like just a lack of continuity from scene to scene. But yeah, he literally just spent 5 seconds before going, "I'm sure she's dead. I saw her die." To oh, I guess May's alive then, and it's just like, hey, like what?
I feel like it might be something like he left her to die because they could only save one, and then
I think
he
that's what it will be.
right, and he's like, "Oh," but they put her inside of a house, and the house burnt down and crumbled, and like, there's no way she could have survived. Whereas really, she was a Force baby, and she put a shield around herself. I don't know. Who
Yeah,
knows?
hey, listen, like that easily could be it. Because I mean, I think there's going to be a situation like that because I think they had to make a judgment call or something based on the situation that resulted in leaving May and the parents to die and saving Osha or something, like a calculated Jedi risk or some shit like that.
Yeah.
But I'll throw a different concept at you now. I'll talk about the sister thing really quickly. I'm wondering if this is the show where we explore a little bit more about the Force dyad that they brought up in Rise
Oh
of
yeah,
Skywalker.
yeah.
Because
Basically, explain people to what the diet is, because it's kind of like a
I
connection that two people have. It's kind of
yeah,
like how Rey and Kylo Ren could switch, what like
they get
lightsabers,
right.
and
Yeah,
they could heal each other and all that stuff. And we see it happens often with twins and other people too. So I
yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if they go into more detail about that. That would be really cool.
Just because, and again, this is me tinfoil hatting,
Yeah.
but the Acolyte logo is the O is two rings, one red, one blue, like sort of like separating from one another, almost like two rings side by side, kind of separating.
Yeah.
And now we've got twins. And again, the scene we're referring to before when she was trying to get Pip from the cell, they've established that May is the bad twin, the dark side twin, who's super
Yeah.
capable in the Jedi and forces and everything else. Sorry, in the Jedi and in the Force. I apologize.
Yeah.
And then they again made an intentional point to show us that Osha is not strong in the Force because
No.
even at a moment when her life depended on it, even though she had training from before, she still couldn't summon it because it was whatever. It's been 16 years or whatever the hell it's been.
Right.
So I wonder if there's going to be a discussion on the fact that these two twins are, have totally opposite lives and they're light and dark, and is that coming together? I don't know. It seemed interesting to me to set that up like that.
It is very interesting because like we've seen it many times before, even in the Ahsoka show where you had the daughter and the son, right, of like from Rebels or Clone Wars. There's a light and a dark side, and there's twins, and there's a whole thing about that
Siblings
over and
too,
over
right?
again. Yeah, exactly. So I'm
The
really
dark side and the
curious.
light side are siblings.
Yeah,
brother and
so
sister.
it's really interesting. But the fact that she doesn't have strength in the Force is very interesting because we've seen that before, but they don't really focus on it. Like Luke was strong with the Force, but his sister
Yeah.
wasn't. But then at the end, she kind of was. So we really don't know where it was. But I get it. But like if they're going to make them face off, and she would need to up her game. And I don't think there's enough episodes to really like, show that in a way where fans would buy it.
Like honestly, like I'm the more I think about it, I want them to like fucking at one point, when they're together with like the master and like he's trying to seduce Osha into the dark side. I want them both to like take out like half of a medallion each and connect it together and get powers and fucking kick his ass or something like
like double dragon
style,
yeah. Is this
I
what
don't know,
it is?
man, the twin thing is so old though, right? It's such an old, like it's a Bollywood concept, and I know Hollywood's done it too. The whole twins separated and then coming together, fighting, taking on evil. One twin's bad, the other one's good, and they have to like redeem themselves. Like we've seen this story before, but I just don't know how, because May is also good, right? Like we've shown that May is good. May didn't kill that kid,
Yeah.
She definitely was emotionally impacted when she saw her sister.
Yeah.
But what's weird is, and again, if you want to talk about a little bit of the criticism of the show, there's some moments that don't land well and that don't make sense. Like that moment where they meet each other and they both find out that the other is alive is a great moment. It's very impactful. Osha intentionally misses so that her sister can escape and da-da-da-da. Everything's great. But then after finding out your sister's alive, you're still going off with Kimir to kill the next one on your list. Like, you didn't pause to go, wait, bitch, but my sister. I'm trying to take revenge for my family, but my sister's right there. Like, oh shit, wait a minute. Like, that doesn't do anything. You're just like, off to the next kill. Like, what?
Yeah. That's so weird.
I thought was a little weird.
Yeah. I also I'm kind of tired of like the May Luke Skywalker character who are kind of just like, they're good with mechanical stuff and they're kind of just like la-di-da, and then somehow they're good with the Force, and like we've seen it once, we've seen it with Luke, we've seen it with Rey. Like it's enough. It's enough. We're like, one of the reasons we really like The Mandalorian is because The Mandalorian was a character we've never seen before. It wasn't somebody who just like happened to be good. It's like this was a fucking space Batman. He just knew how to do stuff. He was just really dope.
No archetype for him, right?
Yeah.
Basically, like there was no previous archetype of that character in any other media, because again, you look at Poe Dameron's basically a little bit of Han Solo, right?
Right.
There's a little bit of Luke, right? So like there's this, like the new characters and the old characters have very similar connections and archetypes with one another. With Mandalorian, it's like, this is brand fucking new. I've never seen this. I don't know what the hell this is. Like, I've seen it in other shows, but tell me more about the way and shit, like, this is fucking cool. But yeah, like they need to do something new. And so far with what I'm getting from Acolyte, I'm enjoying the new settings, the new aliens, the new characters.
Yeah.
I'm liking sort of the vibe that just doesn't feel like the prequels. It doesn't feel like the sequels. It feels like its own separate thing. And I want them to explore that more and just keep it. I don't want to hear familiar planet names. I like that Coruscant looks really different now, which I thought was a really cool sort of choice.
Right? It's like
that head out, the fucking Jedi Order just looks like a very simple, just temple. It's just white. Whereas in the sequels and the prequels, Coruscant is like a busy metropolitan planet. Like there's fucking lights, and even in the Mandalorian, like when you see Coruscant, it's like, holy shit, this is really cool. But here it just looks so bare because of a while ago, right? I'm liking that. I like this world. I like the characters. Like, fuck your science and fucking fire and space bullshit.
Don't really care as long as the story is good.
There's some stuff I'm concerned about, like. Tonally, it's like a little hit and miss. Like again, I'm enjoying what I'm seeing, but it's like the endings are also like weird. Like the episode ends, but I feel like they're trying to end it on like a oh shit, but instead it's just like a wait what? Like you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have the punctuation mark that those scenes should have.
I get that. That's why I feel like they dropped the first 2 episodes at once, because they wanted to give you enough time to really get into it, because like one episode might not have been enough. But speaking of the story, someone says, Joseph, he says, have you guys seen British mystery shows? It's always the last person you suspect. Murder happens in the opening scene, but it's too obvious. So here's the thing about that. With
it's not so, Joseph. Get over it.
Here's the thing, though. He brings up a great point, but to me, I don't think this is a good idea for a show like this, because it's a week by week show, and there's a big fandom, and there's people dissecting every single episode, and there are people doing Easter eggs and stuff like that. And what happens is, if the mystery isn't as good as it's like leading it off to be, then it kind of ruins the whole show. And for something like this, like every single theory is already discussed. Like there's so many theories that have been discussed that like someone's going to figure it out, and it's going to be like, it's like the last season of How I Met Your Mother, everybody knew the mom dies. Like that was no big secret. It's kind of like people figured it out because we had 10 years to figure it out. It's like we know, like it's fine,
Yeah.
right? So like
Yeah.
the
You're not
mystery,
getting groceries. Like it's been 10 years. Fuck.
yeah.
Like
I feel like the mystery would have to be really, really good, where like you don't see it coming, which I don't like those. Because the best ones are the ones where like it was so obvious, it was in plain sight, but you didn't know. Those are the best mysteries, and I feel like
Yeah.
those don't work in this because every theory under the sun is going to be thrown out during like the Easter eggs and the discussions that are happening every single week of the show.
it's also interesting because, like, speaking of murder mystery, like in recent times we've had an oversaturation of murder mysteries if you really think about it. Like Knives Out, sort of
Yeah.
brought us back to like a satirical sort of homage to murder mysteries.
Yeah.
And then at the same fucking time, we still had the Poirot movies going, which were the actual Agatha Christie murder mystery adaptations,
Yeah.
the OG ones. They
Yeah.
were coming out at the same time in between these movies. And then we even fucking had comedies, right? Like we had the Adam Sandler Netflix movies, which I think was called Murder Mystery.
Yeah.
But those were successful in their own right as a comedy spin on the same genre. So like we've gotten a lot. So it's like for them to set this as the premise, it's like you have to give me something I haven't seen. And if you're building towards this massive reveal, if you can't make it work, all this shit's gonna be for nothing, right? Like as much as I love these characters, if this show doesn't end on a note that feels satisfying to what you've been building, these guys are just lost now, right? They're just gonna be in the ether of fucking Star Wars canon, and we don't know when we're gonna see them again.
Yeah, that's why I think murder mysteries and stuff work best as movies, because you don't have enough time to think about it, because you're immersed in the roller coaster of the movie and you're experiencing everything the director wants you to experience, and you're feeling everything they want you to experience, and they have things hit you so fast where you don't get enough time to process who could be the killer. And that's why stories like Knives Out works, whereas like if Knives Out was a TV show broken out into like 4 weeks, people would figure it out after the first week. Which is why I think this would have been a better movie than a show if the murder mystery is their strongest plot point.
I'll counter that a little bit with Only Murders in the Building, 3 seasons, going on strong with a 4. So I mean, but that's kind of the point. It's like they can make it work if they can make it work. like
I've never seen that.
Other people have done it.
I haven't seen that. I know
it's really. I've only seen season. It's only season 1, but I mean, my point is, like, regardless of quality, like it's been successful enough to go on for so long, right?
For sure.
So I mean, it's just, that's the only thing I'm worried about with Acolyte. I'm like, you're giving me a lot of good stuff, but you patched it all around one really big sort of thing, and if that thing doesn't work, all this other shit kind of like. Doesn't have as much of an impact as we're thinking and hoping it will, right?
It's like Lost all over
I hope
again,
she does something different.
It's like if the payoff at the end of Lost isn't good, then it's like the whole show is like not remembered as great, even though it was pretty good.
It's like trauma now, right? Like I look back, I'm like, fuck, I was up to 4 for so many months.
We got people in the comments saying Murders in the Building is really, really good. You should check it out. People on Instagram are saying that. And someone says strategical surprise versus tactical surprise. I don't know what the difference is, but that sounds very, very interesting. All right. What do you think about May and Soul's fight? I thought that was a pretty dope fight, and how they use sand and everything. I thought that was really, really cool and well done. And then how he like strips the weapons away from her, and he also noticed that she wasn't using weapons, which is kind of like, how do you know about that? You something you want to tell us, Soul?
I'm like bracing for like fucking coming off the Soul high when he betrays us. I'm like ready for it. And I'm gonna be so fucking heartbroken. But no, I mean, like I thought that fight was good. I'm loving the hand-to-hand shit, because you know what? It's something we definitely don't see enough in Star Wars, and it only makes sense, right? Like if you are so skilled with a lightsaber, those skills are transferable to hand-to-hand, you know. So it's like, why haven't we seen more Jedi fighting instead of just lightsaber dueling? And again, and that's why I'm really interested in the philosophy of this show, because it's like weapons are last resort, and no one's picking up their weapon, and there's a whole conversation around unarmed and weapons that I'm trying to understand what they're trying to say, and I hope it's something meaningful. And I'm also wondering how that ties into the larger story.
Yeah,
know.
and there's
Um,
also people making arguments that like, oh, why don't you use the Force the whole time? And I was like, well, have you played Star Wars video games? You can't use the Force at all times because the Force gets depleted.
our
So
buddy.
you gotta think of the Force as like a finite thing. It takes energy. You can't like bench press 225 as much as you want. You get tired, and I feel like the
Yeah,
Force is the same thing. It's like a muscle. Muscles get
yeah,
tired after a while, so you have to be like very strategic about when you use it and when you don't. So I
100%.
feel like that's an easy thing to explain away. I don't know why people get so mad. They think like the Force is something you can just use infinitely, which is it shouldn't even work on superheroes, to be honest. Superman shouldn't be able to fly. I feel like that should tire him out too. Like he needs to take a chill after skipping countries.
I just
Uh,
saw an episode of Big Bang that debated that. I think the pilot debated that of how Superman can fly, and is it a feat of strength or is it just something he can do innately?
Yeah, well, in the comics, there's two things. There's like there's a few lores. There's one is like Superman has an extra body part, an extra organ inside of him that can control gravity. Apparently, like the gravity muscle. And another one is just like it's the magnetism from the Earth that kind of lets him do it. And the third is that he's actually just like super strong and he's skipping the whole time and using
Wait,
air drag.
he's doing the floating fucking the
Yeah,
illusion.
yeah.
No, I
There's
thought
plenty of there's-
no, I thought they explained it that Kryptonians have higher bone density or whatever, and so the gravity is lower on Earth, so that's why Kryptonians on Earth can fly and they can't fly under a planet with a red sun. I thought like they explained that shit
No,
already.
that's how they explained it originally, but they actually have like retcon it in some comics to make it
Really
more manageable. Because they're like, that's why he can do it, but how does he
weird.
control it? How does he
Weird.
like how does he stand in midair, right?
See,
With
I like,
no
yeah. So I love that Boys season 1 talks about that because there's that scene where Homelander can't stop
can't
the
get the
plane from
plane.
crashing. Maybe it's
Yeah,
like just fucking do it, and he's like, that's not how physics works. Like, what am I gonna
yeah,
push up against to make it stop? There's nothing.
yeah,
It's air. So I love
right.
that. Like he brings up that physics sort of limitation. Because yeah, what is Superman? If it is a strength, he still the
Yeah.
physics should still apply. So what is he gonna push back on to go up this way?
Yeah, Omni-Man does
High
kind of the
school
same
physics.
thing, where Omni-Man was like he is basically omnidirectional. That's how he gets his name,
Yes.
and it's like a
Yeah.
muscle. And just like every
Well,
muscle, you
Omni-Man
get
says
tired.
that they don't have to. Omni-Man clearly says again. I haven't read the comic books, but in the show in Amazon Prime series, he clearly when he's training his son how to fly, he tells him that we don't have to push up against anything to change direction. We
Right.
can just do it. Like our body,
Yeah.
we don't have to. There's no momentum. There's no physical. There's no angles. We can
Right.
at will move in any direction without pushing
Yeah.
off of a surface.
And
So
he
I
also
thought that
said
was an interesting way of explaining it too.
it's tiring. So every now and then
Yeah.
you're really not flying, you're falling. And then that's how you get rest. And then you start flying again. So like you're not flying the whole time. So I like that how sometimes they explain it.
Yeah.
And the Force is kind of like the same way. It's like literally the Force you can use to fly if you really wanted to, right? They do the Force
Well,
jumps.
and that's the thing too, right? It's
It
like
was unlimited.
look at how we just explained flying in different universes of fictional content, from Superman
Yeah.
to Invincible to like The Boys. You know what I mean? Like totally separate works of fiction, right? But and that's kind of the point of like arguing about this shit. It's like this is how Star Wars wants it in their universe, and guess what?
Yeah.
This is 100 years before. They'll say that this happened differently now versus that. Like there's fictional ways to explain fictional things. We don't need to be arguing about it because literally in the next episode, someone can say something that explains your problem away. So why are you so focused on that? Focus on the
I know.
emotions, the story, where it's going. Like, stop nitpicking this shit. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, at least we've come a long way. We're discussing fire in space and not why black people live in space. So at least we've come
Oh
that
God.
far. At least
Yeah.
that's not the argument. Because back when Obi-Wan Kenobi come out, that was the argument, which was
I'm
like
so
ridiculous.
sick of this shit, man. Like it's like clockwork. And like they're literally operating from a manual, right? Fucking John Boyega, Rose Tico, Ray, fucking Reva, and now fucking Charlie Barnett, what his name is?
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah.
Like fucking it's like clockwork. Every fucking release you gotta pick on a person of color. Like it's
And you know what
so
happens? It's really annoying. And then, like a few years down the line, they're gonna get their redemption story, and then people are gonna cheer for it as if they were not hating on it the whole time. Like Anakin Skywalker, when Hayden Christensen got like his flowers, I'm like, you motherfuckers, you were the same people. You were the same people hating on the prequels. I was like,
I've been here from day one, Annie.
when Ahmed Best got to play a Jedi. We were like, yay, they're so happy. I'm like, no, you were a Jar Jar hater. Don't try to change it. And the same people that are hating on all these people of colors are going to turn around and pretend like they weren't the ones hating on them and making them, think of like doing harm to themselves. And they're gonna be like, oh, I'm so glad this happened. Like, no, look, the internet keeps receipts now, so you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Someone says they are reporting that the online episodes had 1 and 2 had 4.8 million streaming views after day 1. Your thoughts? I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's great. People say there's Star Wars fatigue. I'm like, what Star Wars fatigue, right? Even though I do believe in it, I don't think it's enough to justify of like, saying these things are not really happening. But I do think like this is another conversation that I want to have. It's and it's not just for Star Wars. It's for DC. It's for Marvel. It's for everything, right? So what happens is a lot of the times, all of these things like Star Wars and Marvel gets hated on because they start using people of color and they start getting all these things and they start calling it woke and stuff like that. And sometimes the stories are not as good. But the thing is, I feel like a lot of these companies, they start adding people of color to these stories after they have the fatigue. After superhero fatigue sets in, then they bring in the people of color. After Star Wars fatigue sets in, then they bring in the people of color. And it's kind of like it's setting them up for failure. Like that's why Black Panther was so amazing, because they dropped Black Panther at the height of Marvel, at the height of like what Infinity Wars and Endgame was happening, and that's why it worked so well. Whereas a lot of these other stories, they're happening at the fatigue level after the hype goes down, after they hit their peak and they're on their way down, and then they're like expecting these people of color who are not getting the same budget, who are not getting the same promotions, who are not getting the same marketing to make the same kind of thing happen that the shows before that, when the show was at its height, is happening. And it's not a fair comparison. And they are setting these people up to fail. And then every time these people go and do interviews, the questions they're being asked are not about the shows. They're not about the plot. They're about diversity, which makes it feel like the show is only there for diversity. And I feel like a lot of the times they're shooting themselves in the foot when they angle it this way and they use this to squeeze out some more viewership, when they really should be just, giving these people of color the same great writing and directors and actors as everything else.
Listen, like, I grew up, so till 12 years old, I lived back home. My understanding of American culture was American movies.
Sure.
Okay. Which has stereotypes. I grew up reading Archie comics, and I'm like, so you wear shoes all the time in the house. That's what I thought was accurate. So I'm like, oh man, the freedom of not having to take your shoes out of the front door, man, that's life in America. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, again, other cultures see movies of other cultures and they fucking love it. There might be zero cultural context. But if you tell a good story, like you have, like, how many countries grew up on Hollywood movies because they didn't have a film industry of their own? Did they understand the cultural context? Hell no. Did they love those movies? Did those movies teach them English? Did they have a better sense of story? Did those people become creatives in their own countries and their own cultures because of the influence of Hollywood movies? Yeah, fuck yeah. So why is it that we can't see stories of other cultures as predominantly as we do that? You know, it's happened. You've done it, Hollywood. Like, you've done it outside of your own country to like an international audience. That's why your movies play all over the fucking world. So why not show other cultures that other cultures can also watch and fall in love with? You know, and why not do that first and not as an afterthought? Like, and again, it's not crazy, right? Wonder Woman came out as part of the first batch of the DCEU, made $1 billion that first one, and it's considered to be one of the best superhero movies, if not best DCEU movie. You know what I mean? Scarlett Johansson got Black Widow at phase 4.
Yeah. Right?
After her character in canon already died.
Yeah.
So it's a prequel that's not going to go anywhere except for, again, Yelena Belova, which is great. You know, Florence Pugh, love her character. And then you're going to tell us that, see, this is why we don't make women hero movies, because they flop.
And that's a great point.
Well, didn't Captain Marvel make $1 billion? Like, fuck off.
But
you're right. It's a losing game.
You also bring up another point, because a lot of these stories with these, predominantly like, marginalized groups of people are backdoor pilots for other shows. One of the reasons I hate season 3 of The Mandalorian is basically a backdoor pilot to Ahsoka. One of the reasons I don't like, Ahsoka is that it's a backdoor pilot to something else. I'm like, let these shows stand on their own. Right. And I get it. It worked great because The Mandalorian was a backdoor pilot for Boba Fett. But look how Boba Fett did when it stood on his own. Not that great. Right. So it's one of those things where I'm just like, stop using these shows to backdoor other shows if it's not relevant to the plot.
Yeah, it's like the franchise fever, right? It's like we gotta make this into this and connect this to that, and it's like, and it's so stupid too that you did it with The Mandalorian, because The Mandalorian wasn't work because it was originally, it wasn't tied into anything else.
Yeah,
it was a concept we were familiar with, but with a brand new character in that culture, in that storyline, who's not someone from the Clone Wars, who's not someone from that we've seen before. Totally new, totally different. Yeah, you're right. As much as I love seeing Bo-Katan show up, it's like, I'm not watching the Bo-Katan show. Like, yeah, fine, fucking bring her in and let her fuck around Mandalore trying to rule it in her own show. I would have loved that.
Yeah.
But it's like, why did this become that? And now we've got daddy and son just traipsing the fucking galaxy trying to get, like, it didn't make sense. And it's just like, you forgot why this show was good. This show had nothing to do with anything in Star Wars, and now you made it so deep in the lore that every week is a fucking cameo. Every week is oh my god, and every week I'm fucking writing explainers of how this connects to the Clone Wars. Like, it's like, stop.
And I'm not saying it can't work. Like, it obviously has worked in the past, and one of the best examples is like Captain America: Civil War with Black Panther, and then Black Panther, but T'Chaka and T'Challa were both pivotal characters in that movie. They're not just like side characters or little cameos to set up another movie. They were big portions of that movie. And sometimes
the entire driving force of Civil War is T'Chaka's death and T'Challa wanting to track down the Winter Soldier. That's the entire driving force of that movie.
Right? So like, it does,
if that didn't happen. So
exactly. It can work, but you have to respect the source material, and you have to respect the plot and writing, and you can't just throw it in just for fan service, because in the grand scheme of things, it won't feel like it held its own.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's again, you made a really good point that it's like, you're giving us the things we want about diversity and inclusivity, but you're doing it on the butt end of people losing interest. So then when they come out, you're like, see, this is like, it's like this vicious self-serving, like self-sabotage almost, right? Intentionally, just to prove that these things don't work, but you're not treating them like everything else, which is the shitty part.
Yeah. Someone says, what do you guys think of the fire? I think they accidentally revealed it in the trailer. So I don't watch trailers, so I don't know. So I can't really answer that. I like to go in kind of blind, don't want to know anything, and I just kind of go down with it. So I don't really know what to do with that. One last thing, they go to let's finish this off. They go to Kovar. We see a Jedi Wookiee, Kalnaka. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, again, the end didn't grab me how it was supposed to end. Like, it'd be nice if it ended with like a more panache, but I mean, I really don't know what to expect. I'm thinking, what we've got. Yeah, he's the last one, right after Saul. So I'm thinking this episode is where we get the reveal. I don't think they're going to leave it for the end. I think we're going to find out what happens. And again, if you've been paying attention to some of my colleagues, some people have already seen it, and they are bracing themselves for the reaction next week. So I'm very curious to see
I am very curious also. I also don't see the big appeal of a Jedi Wookiee, because like the appeal of the Wookiee is that they're big and they're strong. But when you use the Force, being bigger and stronger physically doesn't really affect your Force perception or your Force-like powers, right? Like, Darth Vader is not a big dude, but he can stop an entire ship and hold it and keep it from flying away. Whereas, like, would a Wookiee be more powerful or not? Like, I don't see how it's cool. It's cool in a sense that we never had it before, but there's nothing like, this is going to be something I've never seen before, because it's just going to be a Wookiee doing the same thing every other Jedi does.
I'm gonna throw something at you, okay?
All right, what is
I
it?
just thought about this right now. I'm gonna throw something at you. Ready? Ninja bear. Okay. No, what I'm saying is Wookiees
Cocaine
are
Wookiee.
crazy. right. Because Wookiees, like what you're saying, Wookiees are naturally strong. They're savage, beasts. They're fucking strong as hell. They're honorable. They're
Yeah.
loyal. They're very in tune with like nature and everything else. What I'm thinking is if you teach someone with that kind of raw power, actual like skills and force woo and lightsaber duels and shit, how much more of a threat does that thing now become? So that's what I'm thinking. Like I get what you're saying, but I'm just saying that imagine seeing a Wookiee actually like structuredly fight and do martial arts along with their brute strength of their physical endowments.
I'm very curious. I'm very curious if we're gonna see that because that's a
I don't
lot.
think we're
That's
gonna
a
see
lot of movement in a big ass person with a
I don't-
suit on. It's not like a CGI.
You know what
it's the real
You know what
suit.
it also is? I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about something I've never had a chance to talk about before. The Wookiee, like the fur design.
Yeah.
Why is it omnidirectional? So when they raise their hands, you can see the bare arm because the hair is just from here down.
Yeah.
Like it's weird. Why isn't the hair flowing down like fur? Why is it one directional? It's like
so
curtains.
weird.
Like when they lift their arms, it's like fucking drapes. And it's like that's not how hair grows. Like what?
That is true. That is true. Look at my
Fucking
beard.
weird thing to bring up in this conversation, but I felt like I had to get that off my chest.
That is weird. I've never heard anyone bring that up before.
Look for it. Look for whenever a Wookiee raises their hands or whatever, you can see like bareness and like the hair just hanging or whatever.
Maybe it depends
weird.
on what shampoo they use. Maybe the Vidal Sassoon Wookiee gets different.
The grooming element involved
Yeah.
in the look. Yeah, maybe. Hey, there's a commercial right there, I think.
I want to see a Wookiee do an Herbal Essence Pantene Pro V commercial.
Oh, I'd love that. That'd be great.
Oh man, listen, thank you so much for being on the show. We recapped 2 episodes. Let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Twitter, X at the Shah Shahid. You can find me writing about literally anything that I think about, which may or may not be valid, at themovieblog.com. And yeah, just honestly, like I talk about this shit all day, every day. So just reach out to me on socials and just start a conversation.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And guys, don't forget to follow him and check it out. We would love to have you back, by the way. If you ever ever want to come back on the show, please feel free. We would love to have you back. And for the rest of you guys, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. We are almost at 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. So help us get to 10,000. We got over 9,000, which is like a meme apparently, which I thought was fun. But yes, please do follow. And you can follow me anywhere at Watch with Neebs on Instagram, TikTok, and on YouTube. Until next time, guys, Salaam, nerds.